I never thought I'd post here, but after what happened last week, I can't keep it in anymore. I'm not asking for pity, just a place to finally say the truth out loud. Maybe someone out there will understand. My name's Rachel Myers. I'm 33 now, but this story starts when I was 18, standing barefoot in our farmhouse kitchen, clutching a wrinkled sonogram photo like it was the only thing keeping me upright. We lived just outside Bozeman, Montana. My dad was a preacher. My mom? The kind of church wife who made homemade pie for every funeral and still ironed my dad's socks. I was the oldest of five. Grew up with curfews, Sunday school, and a long list of things that were unladylike. I followed most of the rules, but I also had a secret. I was in love with Seth Delgado, our neighbor down the road. Seth was 22, half Mexican, worked as a welder, drove an old Dodge that rattled louder than our church bells. He didn't go to college, didn't quote scripture, but he was kind. And when he looked at me, I felt seen, not inspected. We kept things quiet. In a town like ours, a relationship like that, people talk. Especially when you're the preacher's daughter and he's that boy with the tattoos. Then Seth got sick. It started with chest pain and dizzy spells. One ER visit later, they found a thoracic aortic aneurysm, a ticking time bomb in his chest. He needed surgery, fast and expensive. He didn't have insurance, and public aid wouldn't approve the procedure because technically it wasn't rupturing yet. That's the phrase they used. As if waiting for him to die would somehow justify the cost. 2 weeks after his diagnosis, I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified. But under it all, I felt this strange clarity. Seth might not make it. And this baby, it would be the one piece of him I could hold on to. We cried. We planned. We talked about baby names. I was going to tell my parents. I really was. I even rehearsed it. But life had other plans. My mom found the sonogram tucked in my diary. I came home from my shift at the diner to find her sitting at the kitchen table, the photo laid out like evidence. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just said, "Go upstairs. Your father wants to speak to you." When I walked back down, it wasn't just my parents. There were two elders from the church and one of my dad's deacon friends sitting in our living room like it was a damn intervention. He opened with, "Rachel, what you've done is an abomination." I didn't even get to speak. They called it a disgrace, a sin, a betrayal of everything they'd raised me to be. My dad didn't ask who the father was. He just asked when I planned to get rid of it. I remember staring at him thinking, "You've hugged me through the flu. You've tucked me in every night until I was 13. And now I'm a stain on your carpet?" I told them about Seth, about the aneurysm, about how he might not make it, and this baby. This baby was his only chance to leave something behind. You know what my dad said? "Then maybe he should have left you a savings account instead." I couldn't breathe. One of the elders started praying right there in the living room, asking God to restore purity to our household. I stood there shaking. I hadn't even gotten to cry yet. That's when I pulled out my phone. Quietly hit record. I filmed them. My dad's rant, the elder's sermon, my mom's silence. I didn't know what I'd do with it, not then. But I knew one thing. I wasn't staying. And by nightfall, I was gone. With a backpack, a wallet that held $43, and a video file that would change everything. Because one day the world was going to see exactly how they treated the girl they claimed to love. And I'd make sure they never got to rewrite the story. I didn't have a plan when I left. Just a half-charged phone, my work uniform stuffed in a grocery bag, and that shaky video file of my father calling me a walking shame. The first night, I crashed on my friend Morgan's couch. Her parents were out of town, and she promised I could stay as long as I needed. That lasted 3 days. When her mom got back and saw me in the kitchen microwaving ramen, she didn't even say hello. Just turned to Morgan and said, "We're not a shelter." So I packed up. Again. I tried sleeping in Seth's trailer, but by then his health had nosedived. His breathing was shallow. The meds made him dizzy and confused. He tried to hide it, but I could tell. I'm supposed to be taking care of you, he said, when I came back from a midnight gas station run with crackers and canned soup. And you're out here playing nurse with a baby inside you. We didn't say it, but we both knew. The surgery wasn't coming. He'd been denied by every charity hospital in a 4-state radius. Too risky, they said. Too advanced. It was like watching someone slowly disappear, one day at a time. I found an abandoned RV behind the old livestock auction yard off Route 191. The windows were busted, and raccoons had clearly lived there before I did, but it locked. That was enough. I cleaned it out with bleach I bought using the last of my diner tips, found an old cot, laid out my coat as a blanket, hung a little battery-powered lantern Seth had once used on fishing trips. It was the saddest excuse for a home I'd ever seen. And still, better than begging for space on someone else's floor. I took shifts wherever I could. Truck stop register from 6 a.m. to noon. Gas station cleaning crew from 11 p.m. to 3. Some days I barely saw daylight. When I'd come visit Seth between shifts, I'd lie about how things were going. I got offered extra hours. I'd smile. We're gonna be okay. But we weren't. I was 7 months pregnant, living off crackers and trail mix, barely able to stand without feeling like the room was tilting. Then came the night I collapsed. I was at the register of the Maverick station off I-90. A guy in a flannel asked for Marlboros, and the next thing I remember was a bright ceiling light and the sound of someone calling my name. Rachel. Rachel, stay with us. I woke up in the ER. The nurse told me I'd fainted. Blood pressure dangerously low. Dehydrated. Malnourished. I asked about the baby before I asked about myself. She was fine. Small but fine. Heartbeat strong. Then, as they were getting ready to move me to a recovery room, the nurse, a woman probably in her 60s, gently touched my arm. "You've got someone coming to pick you up?" she asked. I shook my head. No family. She looked at me for a long time, like she was deciding something. Then she said, "If the father's still in the picture, I think he needs to know how close this was." I bit my lip, trying not to cry. "He's dying," I said, "but I'll tell him." And I did. That night, I sat by his bedside, his skin pale like candle wax. "I passed out," I told him. "Hospital said it could have been worse." He took my hand and whispered, "You need to stop carrying this alone." "I'm not," I said. "I've got her." That was the first time either of us used her. We didn't know the gender, but something about that moment made it real. The next morning, when I came back to the RV, I noticed something strange. The door was open. I stepped inside and felt it immediately. Someone had been there. My phone was gone. So was my backup USB. The only place I had that video, the one of my dad's intervention, was gone. And then I saw it, carved into the wood panel by the cot, deep enough to splinter the surface. "Stay gone." No signature. No clue who did it. But I already knew. There's only one person who still had a key to that trailer. And he shared a last name with me. By the time I was 34 weeks pregnant, Seth couldn't sit up on his own anymore. I'd prop him up with old pillows in that creaky twin bed, wipe his face with a cool cloth, and pretend like we still had time. We both knew better. The waitlist for surgery had gone quiet. His skin was yellowing, his breathing shallow. He couldn't eat much. And some nights when he fell asleep mid-sentence, I would stay awake next to him just to make sure he was still breathing. But we kept pretending. Pretending this baby wouldn't be born into chaos. That I wasn't living in a broken-down RV behind a cattle auction lot. That the cot I slept on wasn't sagging more every night. I'd hum lullabies to the baby when the wind shook the walls. I'd rub my belly and whisper things like, "You're safe. Mama's got you." But I didn't even have myself. One afternoon, Seth asked if I had a recorder. His voice was rough, the kind that sounds like someone speaking through cloth. I thought he meant to record music. He used to hum melodies under his breath back when things were better. But no. "I want to leave something," he said. "For her." I pulled out my phone, what was left of it, Cracked screen and all. Hit record. Propped it against a soup can. He cleared his throat, and with everything he had left, he started to speak. Hi, little one. I hope when you hear this, you're somewhere warm. I hope your mom's sleeping through the night again, and that someone's taught you how to dance in the kitchen like she used to. I sat there, hands wrapped around my stomach, tears spilling onto my shirt, trying not to sob loud enough to interrupt him. That message lasted 9 minutes. It's still the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. A week later, Seth was gone. He passed away while I was picking up prenatal vitamins at the pharmacy. Alone. A nurse called me, said it was peaceful, said his hand was resting on his chest like he knew. I didn't get to say goodbye. The day of his funeral, I wore the only black dress I had left. The one I wore to church the week before my dad threw me out. Only this time, no one prayed over me. The chapel was half empty. A few coworkers from the metal shop. A girl he used to tutor in math. One of the nurses who'd grown fond of him. No family. He didn't have any left. But I stood up at the front. 7 months pregnant. Stomach stretching under a thrift store coat. And I read a poem he wrote for our baby. People cried. Then they left. And just like that, it was over. After the service, I walked back to the RV, holding his voice recording on a tiny USB drive. I was planning to tuck it into the baby's hospital bag, the only thing she'd have of him. Except, when I got there, the RV door was wide open, and everything was gone. Not trashed, gone. My bag, the baby clothes I'd collected from church bins, my phone, my meds, and that tiny USB drive, vanished. I stood there in the cold, barely able to breathe. Then I saw the note, folded on the cot. 2 words, block letters. You chose wrong. No name, no return address. Just that. I knew the handwriting. It was my brother's. The one who stood silently beside my dad while they kicked me out. The one who used to bring me gas station gummy worms when I got my period. The one who still had a key to Seth's trailer. I think that moment broke something inside me. Not just from the loss, but from the knowing that someone who watched me grow up, someone who knew what I'd been through, still chose cruelty over compassion. I fell asleep that night on the floor of the RV, wrapped in a curtain and nothing else. Dreaming about a baby who would never hear her father's voice. If you've ever had someone close the door on you when you were at your lowest, if you've ever been made to feel disposable for choosing love, for choosing life, I hope you know you're not crazy, you're not weak, you're just human. And somewhere out there, I truly believe there's still space for people like us to be seen, to be heard, to be held, even if it's by strangers who understand. I used to think power was something you were born into. Turns out sometimes power is waking up in a borrowed bed, baby on your chest, no money in your account. But you still show up. After Seth's death, after the USB with his voice was stolen, after my brother left that note in the RV, I hit bottom. There's no poetic way to say it. I stopped eating, stopped trying. For 2 weeks, I existed, not lived. Carmen, my old Spanish teacher, was the only reason I didn't disappear completely. She showed up at the ER the night I collapsed with a feverish newborn. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand details. She just said, "Get in the car, Rachel." The rest can wait. That's how we ended up living in her basement. Me and Mateo. Her and the ghost of the life she once had before her husband died. It wasn't glamorous, but it was warm, safe. And for the first time in months, I could exhale. Carmen cooked like a grandmother, even though she wasn't one. She watched Mateo while I slept, told me I had a brain too sharp to rot at a gas station counter. One night, after he finally went down, she asked, "What did you want to be before everything?" I stared at my chipped mug. An architect. She smiled like that answer didn't surprise her. "Then you still can." I laughed. "Sure, let me just enroll at Harvard with the $16 in my wallet." But Carmen didn't play. The next day, she left a stack of community college brochures on my nightstand and a sticky note that said, "Pick one. I'll cover the application." So I did. 2 semesters in, I was the oldest in every class. But I aced them. I took jobs drawing floor plans for contractors, editing CAD files late at night, submitting my work under other people's names just to pay rent. I didn't care. I was learning. And Mateo? He was thriving. Every time he stacked blocks into tiny towers, I told myself, he'll never live in a trailer. He'll never sleep next to mold and fear and the sound of coyotes scratching at metal. By the time Mateo turned 3, I entered a local design contest with a sketch I did in the back of a Waffle House napkin holder. The prompt? Emergency shelter for displaced mothers. My design, a foldable prefab unit under $500, built in under 24 hours, with a private space for nursing, built-in storage, and solar lighting. I didn't expect to win, but I did. And suddenly my inbox wasn't empty anymore. There were donors, builders, nonprofits, women who wrote, "I wish this had existed when I left him," or, "Where was this when my parents told me to pack my bags at 17? I named it Mateo Haven, and I made damn sure the first prototype stood in the exact same county where my family still lived. Carmen stood beside me at the ribbon cutting. Mateo held the scissors. Reporters asked questions. I gave them facts. Until one of them, clearly from the local paper, asked the one thing I hadn't prepared for. "Rachel, what inspired this?" I looked straight into the camera and said, "I once slept on a cot in a trailer behind an auction yard, pregnant, alone. My own family said I'd chosen wrong. This is for every girl who was told the same and survived anyway." The quote went viral. The next day, I got an email from my father. Subject line, "Please read this," but I didn't open it. Instead, I clicked on the security footage from the shelter's front gate. Something felt off. There, in the time-stamped recording, clear as day, my brother, standing just outside the property line, watching, holding something small in his hand. I zoomed in. It was the USB drive, the one with Seth's voice, the one he'd stolen, and behind him a young boy, probably 2. Pale, with sandy blonde hair that didn't match his. The twist hit me like ice water. My brother has a son, and from the look on his face, he was finally learning what it meant to fear losing a piece of yourself. If you've ever been pushed out, erased, told your voice didn't matter. I hope you know. You can come back stronger. And one day they might need something only you have the power to give. Or take away. And that choice? That's yours now. The day they came was warm. Late spring. Mateo had just turned 6. We'd moved into our first real home 6 months earlier. 2 bedrooms, a porch swing, and a tiny garden out back where he grew strawberries and named each one like pets. He still didn't know much about my side of the family, just that we didn't see them, and that he had a dad who'd left behind a voice, not a face. That morning, I made pancakes shaped like stars. He drew pictures while I kept checking the clock. Carmen stopped by around 11 to drop off lemon bread and gave me that look, the one that said, "You don't have to let them in if you don't want to." But I did. Not for closure. I'd already closed that door years ago. I wanted them to see what they'd missed. When the car pulled into the driveway, I felt the weight in my chest shift. My father stepped out first. He walked slower now, with a cane. My mom came around the other side. Same haircut. Same pearls. My brother stayed in the car a moment longer, then got out, holding the hand of a small blonde boy. The one I'd seen on the security footage. I opened the door before they could knock. Mateo peeked out from behind my legs. "Hi," I said, my voice steady. "Hi, sweetheart," my mom whispered, like she was still trying to speak into a version of the past that didn't exist anymore. Mateo stepped forward. "Are you the people from the old pictures?" They both froze. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. The photos he meant were the handful I kept hidden in a drawer. Images of me as a kid before everything changed. We invited them in. They sat awkwardly on the couch while Mateo offered them juice boxes and talked about his strawberries. Then I showed them the video. I had it now. Recovered from the backup Seth's nurse had made without telling me. The one my brother never knew existed. I played it on the TV, turned the lights down, and let the sound of Seth's voice fill the room. 9 minutes. 9 minutes of a man saying goodbye to a child he'd never meet. My mother cried. My father didn't move. My brother stared at the floor. Afterward, I asked the question that had been living in my chest for 6 years. Why did you keep it? Why take it at all? He looked up, eyes rimmed red. I thought, if I held on to it, maybe I'd have something you didn't. The room went silent. You already had everything, I said. You had them. You had a home, and you still chose to hurt me. Then, for the first time since that night in the RV, he apologized. No excuses, no explanation. Just, I'm sorry I was cruel. I didn't say, I forgive you. I didn't need to. Because Mateo came over right then, half asleep from the emotional weight in the air, and curled into my lap. He looked up at my father and asked, Do you still think my mom chose wrong? My father's face cracked in half. He nodded slowly, then whispered, No. She chose exactly right. And just like that, justice didn't come through shouting or shame. It came through watching people finally face the truth they tried to bury. They left an hour later. Before my father got into the car, he turned back and said, If you'll have us, we'd like to come again. I didn't answer. I just closed the door and turned the lock. Because sometimes you don't need to reopen old rooms. You just need to make sure they hear the door close from the inside. The lesson I learned? Forgiveness isn't a performance. It's a boundary. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is build a life so full they no longer fit in it. If you've ever had to rebuild from scratch, if someone once told you that love or truth made you less than, I'd really love to hear your story too. Drop it in the comments if you feel ready. And if this journey hit home in any way, you're welcome to stick around. We've still got stories to tell.